just summarize this journey that we took so far since morning. So we went through the keynote presentation, which gives the FIS innovation ecosystem, context and background. And then we went into the areas for FIS line of businesses to explain you which, or to understand, make you understand which particular building block you fit in. And then we went into the FIS APIs to understand how you engage with that building block and how you integrate or potentially possibly integrate your technology stack with FIS. It is not necessary that you need to integrate it with FIS, but you have an option to do so. And when the standalone applications or solutions which are in white label space are always welcome. After that, we went into details about each track. We just finished we just finished digital assets, where we understood across all three systems, three segments, what we are doing on digital assets. Now we are turning our focus on what we are doing on data side or data innovation, which is the second track that we have. Now, I will just go around the table, introduce the speakers for the day, and then we'll start with the key topics there. So we have today Daniel Walton, who is a SVP Technology Development at FIS Global, Senior IT Leader, MBA with Wharton Fellow Executive, bringing the fresh visions for business growth through innovation and breakthrough methodologies. He has 20 years of experience driving business transformations through digital technology. Held authority up to $225 million budget and around 1,000 staff in education, startups, and Fortune 100 environments. Justin Chen, who is product head for FIS Global. Justin is head of capital markets data platforms. She has been with FIS for more than 12 years now, and she's responsible for driving data innovation for capital markets. She has a deep technology background with years of success in transforming ideas into reality. She's a working mother of 13 years old boy and passionate about food, travel, solving problems. We have Alexis here, Alexis Shaw, head of enterprise data governance at FIS. Alexis is head of enterprise data governance at FIS, and she has a track record of standing up with the data governance programs from Ground Zero to Fifth Third Bank, Vantive WorldPay, and now at FIS. Alexis lives in Ohio, and her husband Ben and their golden doodly son. Amit Agarwal, he is the head of partner innovation at FIS Global. Having launched multiple solutions with FIS, Amit has over 18 years of corporate entrepreneur experience. Amit Agarwal led data partner innovation. They work with multiple partners to define and validate new innovation data and decision solutions at FIS. Amit enjoys collaborating with business leaders and entrepreneurs to establish strategies, plan roadmaps, and structure evolutions that with diverse results, seamlessly bridging the gap between business needs and technologies. This is a brief introduction of the speakers, and we'll go around the table with more detailed introductions. First, we'll start with Amit. Amit is going to talk about data partner ecosystems. So Amit, over to you. If you can give a bird's eye view about data innovation and partnerships in banking and payments area, that would be great.
Great, thanks, Prashant. And first of all, thanks for having me here. I think this is a fantastic forum. I'm actually super excited to see the type of partnerships we can build, the type of relationships we can build through this forum that you're facilitating here. So a little bit about what we're doing here within partner innovation, specifically in the area of data. First, I think before I get started on that, I think about when I think about data, when our group thinks about data, we go from data to analytics, analytics to outcomes to experiences. It's these outcomes and experiences that we're looking for, within our partner innovation team. So we're looking for partners that have data and unique analytics that actually facilitate strong business outcomes, right? That create those strong business outcomes using these insights, these aggregation of data, and they're enhancing, they're changing, they're adding value to the overall business experience of our customers. So with myself, at least, and I know we have other panelists, but with myself, we're not specifically looking for technology in data, but more for those solutions that could materially improve that that experience that we talked about of our clients using the power of data. So in that hunt, what we're also looking for is, how do we build new and compelling data networks that could help better facilitate business outcomes using the power of aggregation. So this is, so if you have access to, let's say, you've collected data, you've got access to data that is obviously consented, from your user base. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to think about how we could take the skill, the power of FIS, and together grow and build powerful data networks that, again, I'm going to go back to the same theme that are driving business outcomes for our organization. Prashant, do you want me to talk a little bit about other areas or?
Yes, Samantha. So we'll go around the table first, and then I will start a discussion on the other topics. So, Justin, you have been working with capital market data. If you can, data teams, if you can give us an overview about what we're doing in capital markets on data innovation, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be part of the Innovate 48, especially with the partner edition, right? I think these days, from FIS perspective, we know what we're good at, and then we know what we're looking for on the market, and to be able to leverage and partner a lot of the startup company that's out there, and then kind of partner to go to market to speed up, our solution, complementing it is actually one of the key goals. So I think this forum going to give us a lot of opportunity for collaboration. So if we're going to talk about capital market, I think the first thing is I had to kind of briefly tell you a little bit about what capital market is. I don't know if everyone actually had that background. FIS has, the payment, banking, merchants. It's probably straightforward, but capital market usually is a little bit more complex. If you think about capital market, it's a market. It's literally like market trading capital. So the capital can be in the form of, private assets. Could be real estate. Could be someone's, a wealth from a family office. It could be, public stocks, and it could be every time, kind of equities. And it could be also be on the lending area. It could be like finance, like a loan, commercial loans, and then even on the treasury side. So we have like 4 areas, right? That we got the asset management, which is the manager that actually managing all these various type of assets. And then we have lending pieces, we have treasury, and we have compliance and trading. So it's a very, very broad area. So what does that really mean from data perspective? One characteristic for capital market is we have probably around 200 solutions. It's a lot of them. And a lot of time our customer actually trying to leveraging multiple of them in the same shot, and then trying to support the operation. So a lot of our clients are like a bank institution, financial institute, and then like JP Morgan, Bank of Mellon, kind of like that type of clients. Or it could be even as small as a family office, like a Bloomberg Foundation. So it's very broad. So the biggest challenges we have from data perspective is how do we ensure, number one, we can empower our customer to getting access to data for multiple solutions a lot easier. And a lot of our clients are moving their instances onto the cloud. So how do we creating a easy access for data on the cloud? That become our number one point. And then once that happen, I think what people want to do with the data really is the next level. Now you can actually easily getting all these things together. If you think about, like, just example, Elon Musk, right? He has a lot of wealth covering every type of every type of asset you can think of. How do you actually pull all these things together easily? It would be a very big challenge, because a lot of people use very different software to do that. So technology that can actually help us do that, it's actually really what we're looking for. But I know I'm going a little bit too deep on probably what we're supposed to talk about later, but I think from capital market, it's a mishmash of a lot of areas. So it will be interesting to see what, the participant will come out with ideas here.
Thanks, Justin. So that's on the capital market side. And we have Alexis here to talk about the merchant data business. And over to Alexis for that topic. And then once we cover all the businesses, then we'll go into the detailed questions. Thank you.
Yep, wonderful. Thank you. Really happy to be here as well. You know, in my role of enterprise data governance, we really touch and work with all lines of business. But I think we're really ripe in the most data rich and the most, voluminous data is within the merchant solutions area. We really I come by way of M&A. So I come from the merchant solution side, honestly, through Vantiv, WorldPay, and now FIS, and have been working in data governance along the way there as well. It's really important to understand the concepts of how FIS's role in servicing our clients and especially our merchants, right? I think for me, I'm always very conscious of regulation and policy and best practices and data standards like minimization. Also, are we a controller or are we a processor, right? So many times it depends on the line of business, which also indicates our responsibilities for data management and processing that data and how we treat it along the way. So with the merchant side of the business, it's really critical that we understand all the various nuances from small businesses, which we call SMBs, to the large scale partnerships that we have, the multinational clients, as well as e-commerce and various aspects in that nature. So it's really about, in my role, understanding the breadth of how each of the lines of business do business and the importance of understanding how we can manage the data while accelerating revenue and speed to market.
Thank you, Alexis. We have Dan here to talk about what we're doing on the technology side, which is enabling the data innovation within the FIS. So over to Dan for that topic.
I think you're good. Well, every organization is becoming an IT organization, and that's the fact for us, FinTech that has over 20,000 developers across the globe. And one of the things we need to do with data is understand better, how are we delivering products, and can we increase delivery speed? Can we build a better team? Can we drive strategic alignment? This is a challenge today as the rapid pace of cloud development moves, very quickly, and we need to be able to understand how well we're doing. Are our teams able to work together across the globe, especially in a hybrid environment that we're in today? And we need to look at data from that perspective, is how can we use the data that's the exhaust that's coming out of all of these systems, whether there are code repositories or our build environments, our CI/CD pipelines, all along the way, and understand better the data that we're gathering and how we can use that to improve their pace and rate at which we develop high quality solutions for our customers. This is a little bit different than building, using data as a product or building data into products. It's really about how can we use data internally to help drive innovation and look for patterns that allow us to accelerate our ability to build better teams, get better alignment, and really improve our software development. Some people call it, creating an intelligent delivery platform, gaining those insights. And we're looking for partners, that provide innovative solutions in this area. It's a very new area. I'm sure you've heard of flow analytics is really what's emerging in a nascent space right now. And there's not a lot of companies selling products in this space. So we're really looking for people who are innovative, willing to work with us to figure out how we can gather this kind of data and perhaps create even products that we could provide to our customers who participate with us many times in the development process. As you heard with Amit, we don't just work independently, we work together. As a big software development company ourselves, we work with many, many partners. And as we work across that ecosystem of developers and engineers, it's very important that we're able to track how well we're doing, how fast we're moving, and how our quality, all the different pieces that we can only understand through gathering data.
Thanks, Dan. So I think we covered on high level all three segments along with the technology stack. Now I'll double back from there and go through the entries that we had and the questions that we have received so far. I think that we can focus on those parts. Now, Dan, we have multiple horizontal offerings from startups that have pitched in, applied so far, and many of those are into the encryption of data, security of the data, aggregation of the data using open banking APIs, and then how do you question these question this data to get a decision rather than using that data as is, because there is a privacy concerns on those areas, and there is a good amount of traction that is happening on various technology stacks, which is in the federated learning, where you have data ownership with the different ecosystems which are not ready to share that data, but they want to have some way to learn from that. So there are multiple such like questions are coming, but if you have to order the priorities right in the industry and as well as within FIS, what will be the top three things that you'll be looking for from horizontal technology fabrics that can support 80% of the problem with kind of a 20% of the efforts there? So which is the most painful area right now from your perspective across the industry and obviously within FIS that you see?
Prashant, were you addressing that question to anyone, particularly one of us?
Yeah, so the question was to Dan. This is more kind of a technology fabric. That's why.
Sure. Well, you know, there is a tremendous amounts of data, right, being generated today. And our ability to use that data while addressing privacy concerns, contractual concerns. You heard earlier, Alexis talk about the ability to understand what rights we have to use the data. We need to be able to automate that so that we don't have to investigate it every single time. Another emerging area, especially with data science and the ability to make decisions, right, to look at data, look for patterns, is since we can't often use the actual data, we're looking at the opportunity to use synthetic data that represents populations. Maybe it's digital twins or other ways of representing that population, so that we can rapidly use that data and do experiments to understand what products, what services, what other emerging capabilities might be useful to us as we start building out or perhaps improving our models to make better decisions on the fly. Amit, I know you're working with a number of partners who have very interesting technology that can, like, for instance, look at large data, synthetic data populations and understand whether these could be good candidates for particular products. They could be loans, it could be other types of products we might have. This ability to bring in large data sets, to classify them, to automatically tag them, to understand how, I'll give you a good example. You know, we do a lot of acquisitions. I mean, we win big deals in the banking space, right? And in these deals, we have to move from one company's core to our core. Well, there's a lot of data movement that has to happen in those. And today it's very manual, that process of going through investigating the ledgers and all the different places where data is logged within those previous systems and moving it into ours. In many cases, you know, it's a very straightforward transition. We could take this field and we move to that field. But where we really spend a lot of time, and sometimes it's up to years, is taking those cases where things haven't been done in a straightforward manner. And we have to figure out, how do we take apart a particular part of data and move it into our core data? And if we could automate that process, if we could find ways to auto tag and understand the data, and then looking at it through NLP or other techniques to see where it belongs in the new core, that would be very useful to us. That's an area where we struggle. It's slow. The process takes too long. If we could speed it up, that would save us millions of dollars a year, and also give us the ability to win more contracts, because we only have so much capacity to take on each one of these new opportunities. So we're really looking for a way to accelerate that. And really that gets again into this ability to understand very quickly the data that's there, analyze it, tag it, classify it, understand what rights we have to use it. I mean, the process today is still very slow and manual. We're really looking for ways to automate that capability from an engineering perspective.
If I may, because Dan's very much so talking about my area, right, from a data governance perspective. That's all under our umbrella there. And so I think that Dan really speaks to the importance of data governance and how it can be an accelerator for the organization. I think, you know, I've been in data governance before it was such a thing. It was data cleansing, it was grassroots, right? And so I think historically data governance has been thought of as policing and, you know, stopgaps and, you know, very constricting. And I think, you know, very much so what we're looking from, you know, the most innovative partners and how we've thought about data governance here at FIS is from a very innovative standpoint. Very much so our data governance organization worked hand in hand with our data organization to develop the synthetic data methodology that is considered IP. It's best in class, it's leading. We just need to be able to have the capability to scale. And I think that there could be partners out there that will help us with that. The other key thing is, you know, from a perspective of how do we think about depersonalization for FIS, you know, our team crafted the depersonalization policy that we leverage. And we understand as an organization that depersonalization is a sliding scale, right? Synthetic data is going to be the most depersonalized where we have those different pieces. And there's opportunity within FIS that there's a need to actually, leverage and use personal information or PCI information in order to do the analytics that's necessary. Fraud's an example of that. So I think one of the areas of opportunity too is as we adhere to our information security policies around data in motion, data at rest, encryption, and how do we do that? A latency issue is something that we can certainly leverage. You know, Dan spoke to kind of that speed. We want to do things responsibly. We do things responsibly, but a lot of times that does add overhead. And so we're looking for technical ways to really speed that up while being at the utmost compliant with our policies, compliant with our agreements with our clients, and, you know, enabling our engineers to understand the data that they're working with. I think there's a whole other layer too around classification and data intelligence, right? We want our engineers to understand the data that they're leveraging so that they know how to protect it. They know what we can and can't do with it, those types of things. So that metadata component is really critical from driving innovation while balancing the responsibility that we have for our clients and for our legislature as well. So I think that it's really, you know, that's always kind of the push and the pull, right? Is moving fast, but making sure that we're not putting our clients and our company at risk.
Thanks, Alyssa.
I just want to echo something that what Dan said, right? Because he was talking about how to move from one system to another when the banking client have acquisition. It's actually a very common use case on the capital market side as well, because we're handling sort of the investment side. So a lot of the company acquisitions, or they start acquiring new funds and things like that. How do we actually migrate these? And then they might be running on different systems. So how do we migrating these funds onto one afterwards is the same challenges we're running into in capital market. But then from the data governance pieces, actually the biggest problem we have is actually mastering data. So security master, right? Like how do you make sure, you know, the security item from one system to another is referring to the same thing? And then how do you have a unified and golden copy of like security pricing? And I think that's probably where we're looking at partnership very strongly.
Thanks, Justin. So next question is to Amit. Now we saw about the demand part of it, and since you are in charge of partnerships, what do you see from the supply side, on the partnership side? Do you see that the solution getting addressed to an extent, or there is still a big challenge in terms of finding right partners on those areas?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I'll speak more on the partnership side where we're looking at actual products and actual solutions that change experiences for our clients. So I won't speak about the technology. I think Dan, Alexis, and Justine touched on technology. When we look at partnerships, we probably classify them in two different categories. One would be more along the lines of partners that have, and again, I'm not going to touch technology. So the category I'll talk about is, they've created maybe in analytics, they've created some sort of a experience that takes the insights, right? It could be modeling. Maybe they've got a unique model that they've created that could help improve the credit score, give a higher quality credit score. Maybe they've aggregated data across multiple different institutions or multiple different agencies, right? To be able to, give higher quality information about a customer. So there's that category, we look at that in our partnerships. But then there's also this category of where they've maybe started to collect data that could be in various different categories. So either they've collected public data that is available, across the web in maybe different panels, different websites. That's interesting to us. We start taking a look at what I want to call action data or consent-based data that the customer owns. Our partners, may have had rights to that data. Now, can we take a look at that? Can we merge it with what we have, and can we create new partnerships there? The third category I'd say is behavioral data. Our partners capturing actions of our customers in ways that give us better insight about these customers, the likelihood to purchase a credit product, maybe the likelihood of purchasing mortgage. As an example, we're looking at a partner that is presenting various information on homes, the price of your home, the area that's going to show growth, what your future predictions are going to be, depending on how the customer interacts with that experience. That gives you an indication of will that customer maybe buy mortgage. And mortgage is a very profitable product within a financial institution. So stuff like that becomes very interesting for us. So that's collecting data, and can we take that data and then can we drive material results, impact our clients, with greater insights that will help grow their business. So those are some of the categories what we think of, Prashant and Bill.
Thanks, Amit. So one of the categories of the startups that we see in the applications list is the alternate data. So they're quite innovative companies which are right from the space tech, where they're providing the satellite footage, and they are trying to do on top of that analytics and AI to provide ESG assisted data. They are providing understanding about what kind of geolocation intelligence we can gather from that. And then there are telco companies which essentially or telco startups which are essentially converting the mobile ping data into intelligence. So to what extent do you believe this alternate data is the segment or the innovation in the alternate data is getting witnessed in the market actually from the demand side? Question to Amit here, and then we'll go back to everyone.
Yeah, I think from the market perspective, we've committed to our clients that we'll use their data to improve services and product offerings back to them, right? And so I think it's a very delicate dance as far as, what we can and can't do with our clients' data. They own their data, and we're the processor and controllers. So I want to make sure that that's really clear, because again, I'm the one that comes in with the data governance hat. I always kind of, bring the party down a little bit, because we're all data nerds here, and we all want, we just have such massive amounts of data that we have access to. But it's a matter, again, about what we can and can't do with it based on the services that we're providing for our clients. So when we talk about external market data or bringing data together, it's very much so about enhancing and augmenting the services and the products versus, what is the kind of benchmarking, those types of things. Conglomerates, we want to be really careful. So we're really looking for creative, responsible ways to offer that back to our clients, right? And enhance those products and services, as well as what's the market data that we can bring in and really tie things together. And I think, Justine, you have a perspective. You've been working on that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think Alexis raised a very important point, right? Like the fact that, even especially on the capital market side, like we are basically providing processing tools, allowing them to kind of support their operation. But not saying that you know, third-party data is definitely, there are interesting places where we can actually bring in to enhance that experience. For example, ESG, right? We kind of bring that out, ESG, and then also climate change. We have a set of tools in the insurance area that actually creating kind of like predicted risk. So like satellite image data for like climate, and then also kind of related to those could be a very interesting ideas. And also I know ESG is slightly, it's still a wild west out there, like people trying to figure out what the standard is, but a lot of the, you know, the European side is actually kind of creating a lot of compliance with it. And like, for example, we'll be thinking about, okay, bring ESG data into sort of investment side of the world, so they can look at, hey, you know what, my portfolio, my aggregate ESG score is this, but maybe my investor care more about the E or S, the G, so I can actually balancing the portfolio based on the my clients' needs. So it really, like what Alexis is saying, it's really bringing these data to enrich, you know, what they want to do to make better decision.
Thanks, Justine. One more question, Justine, since you're representing capital markets areas, there are certain questions that have come up about not just the ESG, but the space tech combined with trading, essentially in the commodity market. So some of these areas directly linked with activity happening on the ground, which is in the capacity planning of a mining activity, or what is the reserves that are there. And that essentially can create some indexes that can indicate how exactly trading can happen. So have you seen such use cases where in your ecosystem where such data can be used into the trading decisions that get taken?
I will say that I think they are subset of those data is relevant, but then I haven't seen it. I think it's depends on the area of investment, right? Like if you, especially you talk about the example of mining and things like those natural commodity, there's a lot of various places already have it. Is there a value to aggregate them and then put it into the tools that, you know, our client use when they're making trade? I think definitely, but I think the question right now is, how do we make sure the sources are reliable and then consistent? I think that's really what we're looking at, right? Because I think one thing about partnering with FIS, sometimes I see this change, right? So it's not to discourage anyone, but FIS is big, and then we are under a lot of you know, like we want to make sure we're handling our client data with a very secure mind, and it also is compliant to a lot of the financial rules. So it's almost like, you know, a lot of time people got scared, right? Like working with us, because like, oh my God, you had to go through all these steps. But recently we start bringing, like, for example, cryptocurrency data into FIS. And I am seeing, you know, the company is changing because we realize our approach is actually partnering with a lot more other, you know, not so, I guess, usual data provider, like the big one out there. But so we had to start kind of changing our mindset as well.
And Justine, if I could add to that, I think you bring up an important point. You know, so I think large organization, we have, and Alexis, to your point, and the reason why you do what you do is, you know, our importance, you know, to our clients, our responsibility to our clients, right? So we had to be very sensitive when we work with our partners. What may seem to go very fast in a startup, you know, could take a long time here. But that's not to also discourage you. I think if you have innovative ideas, creative ideas, we still want to hear it. You know, but be aware that, you know, we will go through a process by which you know, things may take a little longer, you know, to get through. But ultimately, the goal is, you know, to get that best experience at the scale that FIS does it.
Thank you, Amit. So next question is about the data marketplaces. So what kind of efforts FIS is doing to approach this concept of data marketplaces? Are we collaborating with partners to create such kind of offerings in the market? And if so, which areas they probably may be? I think we can start with Alexis. And then-
Sure. So we have a couple prongs of that, right? So I think what's really interesting is from my roadmap and what we want to do as we are collecting and being more intelligent about our data through data dictionaries, our tools, business glossaries, lineage, those types of things. We want to make sure that we're making that available to our internal clients, right? The individuals who are working and innovating on a day-to-day basis by breaking down silos, creating our own internal data marketplace that we can, drive, and data intelligence across FIS. That's if you look at my vision for data governance, super high level, it's about driving a data intelligence organization. It's not necessarily, about all the data governance-y things, but if we're doing those right and we know how to handle our data, and we know what our data means, and we know where it is, and we know who owns it, the barriers for, just driving innovation and offering new products and services to our clients are very much lessened. And so I think there's an opportunity for the internal data marketplace, and we're really considering, what could that look like in the near future, the 2023, 2024, as we can bring that together. And I think from a perspective of a data marketplace for our clients, I could very much so probably kick it over to Amit, from our ethos perspective and our product offerings of kind of where we see that as well. But I'll turn it over to kind of those individuals that are looking more outwardly.
Yeah, actually, I might just pass the baton over to Justine, because I think from all of us, Justine's been, quite innovative and thinking about where we're wanting to go with the data marketplace. Justine, if I remember correctly.
You're passing the bucket here. Okay.
I know.
So interesting about data marketplace, right? Because we do have limitation, like Alexis mentioned before, like not necessarily we own all the data, right? But at the same time, we are also in the very, very unique position, especially on the capital market side, that we have large market share in many areas, because how long the software has lasted in that market, we actually have probably at least 70 to 80% of market share. So once, I think the approach for us is FIS itself has a marketplace, right? Like we are kind of trying to build our marketplace to allowing our client to do a lot easier to access, like through APIs and things like that. But externally, we're talking to various couple of partners, right? Like Snowflake, AWS, even Azure and Google, they all have their own marketplace, and they all have like segment of clients that they have. So our thinking is, we're gonna probably have 2 or 3 sets. One is private set of data. So we'll use these kind of marketplaces distributing to our client internally for them to be able to use it a lot easier. And then they are data, once we realize, okay, we can actually leveraging and using to creating subset of data product, then we probably will distribute it to kind of these kind of public. As I think we're kind of taking the model of thinking, we wanted to get the reach as much as we can. So I don't know if that's really a very initial vision. So I'm sure it will be maturing probably in the next couple of months or so.
Yeah, and Justine, if I could add something to that, because I think there's a couple of angles, when we think about our data, and Alexis actually touched on this, with regards to, when we think about how do we use data. So there's 2 angles. There's the angle of, we've talked about, anonymized data. We talked about aggregated data. Dan touched on synthetic data, right? This is data aggregation across multiple clients. We put a lot of governance around that. We, are very, very careful how we bring that data to market. But then there's data about the client, right? So if we look at these data marketplaces, they cover both. They cover aggregated data, and a client can go in, as an example, on Snowflake marketplace, they could go in and they could just select access to their own data utilizing Snowflake. That one, so those are the 2 different angles. And I think we look at how do we bring data to these marketplaces. I think we're looking at both angles. Latter one being specifically deploying on the client's request for their specific data, adding additional insights.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Because I think it's important to remember, and I'll just tack this one thing on, is we have clients that touch across all of our lines of businesses, right? And so a pain point that we've heard throughout the years is just by way of how we've grown through merger and acquisition, is that there's kind of very different, there's different touch points for the same clients to kind of get a holistic view of their partnership with FIS. So that's very much something that we're working on from the Ethos product perspective of, just creating a marketplace, an FIS marketplace for the client themselves, right? And so, where can I access the data? How can I understand it better from that perspective? So I think, as an industry, we think about data marketplace as this big, place to kind of shop for data, understand different places, piece and pull. But I always believe that there is a spectrum, right? And the sweet spot could potentially be kind of in the midpoint of the spectrum for FIS, where we feel comfortable from a risk or a responsibility perspective, and what we're also servicing our clients in a need where they have to kind of have their own kind of marketplace in that aspect, and how we anonymize, how we synthesize data and those types of things is going to be critical. So I think there's opportunities for really creative solutions and ideas that we would love to kind of hear from all of you.
Sure. Thanks, Alexis. The other question is more technical. I will probably address to Dan. So Dan, the question is related to decentralized data marketplaces, because the data marketplace which we referred just now is FIS and centralized and owned by FIS indirectly, at least the infrastructure behind it. The data itself is from the clients. But what is your view about this decentralized data marketplaces where it's the ownership is automatically by the owner, and it is more kind of a Web3 fabric? Do you see potential into this concept? And if so, how this may evolve into more? Right now, this seems to be more kind of a individual data that is getting into this decentralized marketplaces, and there's some kind of a monetization fabric on top of that. But do you see any potential of decentralized data marketplaces in play in institutional businesses?
Well, first I would state that, FIS doesn't own a lot of the data that we use, right? So the data we use obviously belongs to our customers, and it's one of the things we must do is protect that data and ensure that it's, not used for purposes that it wasn't intended for. And we would never do that. So we'll always be striving to, whether it's in a private marketplace for data that Alexis spoke about, or something that could be external, we would never do that without the permission of the owner of that data. Now, this is an interesting space, is what if we do have that permission? How could we use that data in those ways? And that requires, where we struggle right now is having the ability to automate understanding those permissions. What contract do we have to use it? This is really Alexis's space, right? She spends a lot of time with this. Like, how can we understand the data we have? How can we use it in a way that we're allowed to use it? And then make it available in a particular marketplace that a customer has said, you can use my data in this way. Automating that whole series would be really fantastic, because then we could offer new products and services in that space to our customers. It is a technical challenge that needs to be fully automated behind the scenes, and making sure that we never make a mistake of accidentally giving someone's data to some place it wasn't supposed to be. We will always err on the side of caution in this area, because we would never want to unintendedly expose some customer's data in a way it wasn't intended to. So yeah, I think we'd be very interested in solutions that can help us solve this, because we do know that as time goes on and customers gain more ownership of their data, they are going to be wanting to look for ways to monetize that, especially in a way that could bring them value, bring us value, and across the whole data ecosystem or fabric, right? Really spread the value around instead of it all being aggregated to these platform providers as we see it as today.
Right. Thanks, Dan. There's one more follow-up question on that. There are category of startups which are working on ways to make decisions on such kind of open data or open finance data. So if I have an account with the bank, and if I give my consent to pull my data from all my banks, and then instead of using that data in a raw format, can I ask some questions based on some flows with our which are certified by regulators. And then that decision is something can be used by insurance companies to issue me a new products, or lending guys to give me something which is more personalized. And that's the space where many of the startups, at least in APAC, are working on. Now, with the problem statement that you said about data itself is something which is critical, and what kind of authorization the clients have given us is a question. But what if these categories of startups solving this problem, same problem that you just referred about, in a way that instead of sharing that actual data, certified workflows which are allowed by the customer, saying that this is what I certify, and not the data itself, but the outcome of the question that you want to ask data. And then after that, you get the data destroyed after the query is going through. So do you see some potential in such approaches where consent-based mechanisms are there, flow-based regulator comes and says that, okay, this is something which is a framework that we are providing, and unless and until this framework is followed, we won't certify that as a secure aggregation business. And these guys are working with players like AWS, Microsoft to build this kind of a solution. So is that concept interesting? Do you see any challenges? Because there seems to be partly, or at least to some extent, addressing the problem about sharing the data. Instead of doing the data sharing, if we can get decisions, and that too in a specific areas which are regulated by the regulators itself, saying that this is how the customer data should be used. Obviously, regulations should step up to that level and make it mandatory before this succeeds. So will that kind of solution be a solution for this problem that you're talking about?
This is a really,
Yeah.
go ahead, Alexa.
Go ahead, Dan.
This is a really complex topic, and there's no doubt there's a great interest in this by not just us, but by our customers. So could we build products that our customers use to do this? Yeah, we would love to be able to do that. I think it's right now fraught with risk in making sure that there aren't unintended consequences or improper use of data. The other thing that we have to think about is, to make decisions off of data, you need a lot of data. And that means a lot of people would have to give permission to use the same kind of data that we could start making decisions upon. I've heard, and Amit, maybe you want to jump in here, of a black box kind of approach to this, is where questions are queried against the data. People never see the data, and they just get a response. Like, I want to understand a certain dynamic across a certain population. And if there is enough data to make those decisions that's been properly permissioned, again, you're not exposing the data. No one actually sees it, but you're just asking a question of it and getting a response. I think in those cases, that's a really clever way to protect the data. I think we'd be very interested in products like that. Amit, I think you and I talked a little bit about this in the past.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually what you're getting into, so what I liked about that example, Prashant, is, you're not looking at aggregation. You're not looking at multiple clients' data. You've got a particular individual that is looking to get a better experience based on the consent that they've given for the outcome that they want, right? So it's a targeted per customer use basis, and that's what I'm interpreting the question as. So if we get into that space, then we're getting into open banking. We're getting into regulatories that you've seen become mandates in Europe. So if we've got the consent to get the data, and now that's driving results, we'd love to see examples like that, right? We're adding value to the client. We'd love to evaluate, again, under the premise that Alexa's talked about, Dan talked about, we've got to make sure it's all secure. That's number one priority. But we'd love to see use cases that would help maturely drive faster, better, more innovative outcomes for our clients. But with that said, I know Alexis, you wanted to jump in. Do you want to add your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, thank you. I think that, consent is the ultimate, right? It negates a lot of, it can negate, it can override contractual obligations, right? From an addenda perspective, it's certainly what privacy regulation is really just ultimately asking for, is don't use data unless you have consent. Now, I think there is different levels, right? Because remember, our clients we're B2B. And so now we're talking about our clients' potentially, right? And so what does that mean? And so understanding that could be very interesting for our clients. the other piece that we would want to understand too is the use of that data, right? So it's not, so now we have permission, but and this is another piece of our wheelhouse that we're working on here as well, is what's the ethical implications, right? Like, how are those decisions? How are the, you know, what's the ethics and behind the AI and the algorithms of decisions that could pop out of that black box, and understanding that as well. I think that there's a lot of, you know, regulatory things that we think about with fair credit, like FCRA, GLBA, those types of things that you have permission, right? You need to use them for things of like credit decisioning, fraud, those types of things. But I think the other space is now is what are the controls ethically around that use? And so it, you know, it is so multi-layered, but the first step is very much consent. That's, you know, the kind of the, I don't want to call it the overriding factor to a lot of the hurdles that we have with permissions and use. And then it becomes, okay, so, you know, what are the checks and balances on the models and the decision, the AI and the decisioning from that kind of, you know, as Sumit said, that black box perspective. And I think if there's partners out there that have a perspective and a handle on kind of those controls, that would be very interesting as well.
But Alexis, what I would probably add to that is I think the answer and the level of scrutiny changes a little bit, and you keep me honest on this one, depending on, you know, is it on a per request basis, you know, for access to data versus more aggregated. So as an example, if a customer wants to do a credit pull, right, they give consent to do a credit pull that helps them make a, you know, credit decision. So that scenario right there, you know, and I think that's what you might be touching on, Prashant, right? When you ask the question.
Yep.
That scenario, I think, gives us, you know, it's all, obviously, if it's all vetted through and whatnot, but it's a lot more customer driven, as opposed to we getting data on an aggregated basis and trying to figure that out. The latter is much more, you know, we're going to have to go through much more governance on that one. But I think, Alexis, in the first scenario, customer gives consent to credit data. Credit data allows you to make better credit decisions. For that one particular scenario, for that one particular customer, we've got a little bit more flexibility there, right?
Yeah, I think you probably have to think about, is it limited to geography, right? For example, if you just pull in the credit score in US, it's going to be a lot straightforward than trying to pull some sort of international credit score, because individual country, their compliance and also regulation about accessing these data is completely different, right? So when you start thinking about you know, security and compliance, it's not just about consent. Definitely, like Alex said, it's the first step, but then you got the geography, country level, and also government level. I just think that it's a very complicated issue, but at the same time, we had to solve it in some way. So I'm really looking forward to see if there's anyone out there kind of already start looking into that area.
Yeah, and I think, Amit, absolutely, you're right. There's very straightforward use cases. But again, in the level of innovation that FIS is, I think that we would be looking to understand, you know, what is out and beyond that, like what's going to differentiate us in the market. How can we help our clients be different as well? And so I think that I was just kind of calling from a watch out of there's always the next step, and very much so, like Justine said, consent is definitely something that helps us, but then, you know, what are those offerings that we need to do to understand the use as well? So, and that's something we've been talking about for years.
And the good news is we have a process for that, right? So we have this big funnel where we create, we get all these great ideas come in, and then we have a process to make sure that, you know, we're able to bring the best solutions to our clients.
Yep.
Thank you very much. So I think we are at the end of our time. It was a very interesting discussion. I'm sure that there is a good amount of takeaway for startups here. And there are a lot of questions which are pending, but we'll try to address them offline. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.